Hello everyone! There's going to be sources in the description of this video, so all of the sources are going to be said with their name, and so if you want to go and fact check any of the data I presented in this video, they are going to be linked and in the comments, not in the comments, in the description, and you can check them out there, and you can fact check all of it if you want. Thank you for watching and enjoy the video. Hello everyone, welcome back to the video. People cannot agree on whether workers should actually control the companies they work in. Some say it is a real workplace democracy and finally fixes exploitation. Others say it is chaos with extra meetings where productivity goes to die. So, what is actually true? This is not really about good guys, workers versus evil bosses. It is about how different forms of control change incentives, risk, and day-to-day life inside a firm. By the end, you will see why people land on totally different sides of this and where you might end up if your own job suddenly went full worker run the place. So let's get into talking about why people like it. When people talk about workers controlling a company, they usually mean some version of worker self-management or a worker cooperative. Employees own significant shares, vote on major decisions, and often elect the board or management instead of just taking orders from faraway shareholders. According to the cooperative education site cultivate.co, real world worker self management does not mean everyone votes on every tiny decision. Big strategic choices go to councils or assemblies, and smaller choices are made by the people closest to the work within agreed on rules. You might notice this whenever someone says, "We don't have a boss, we have meetings." But those meetings actually decide pay scales, hiring, and long term plans instead of just being another calendar tax. One big reason people like worker control is the promise of fairer outcomes and stronger commitment. According to research summarized by Rutgers University's CLEO project, worker cooperatives and employee owned firms in several market economies match or even exceed the productivity of conventional firms, while distributing profits more directly to the people doing the work. According to shareable.net, economist Virginie Perrotin finds that worker cooperatives tend to organize production more efficiently and often get people to work better and smarter because they share both control and rewards. You might notice this whenever someone in a co-op casually says our profits and literally means it. There is also the community angle. Companies run by workers tend to anchor jobs locally instead of chasing short-term returns. According to the Aspen Institute, worker cooperatives in the United States are more resilient to economic shocks, experience lower turnover, and often pay equal or higher wages than comparable conventional firms, which directly boosts stability for workers' families. A classic real-world example is the Mondragon Cooperative Network in Spain's Basque County country. According to Semester at Sea and Mondragon Corporation, it has grown since the 1950s into a complex of more than 100 cooperatives with around 80,000 workers, combining industrial firms, a bank, and even a university under the principle of one person, one vote. This model can prove that it is possible for these sorts of companies to work, and as an example that people can pull out. Now, the problems. This is the part that pro-co-op people would never put in any of their bios. Worker control can also create messy governments, slow decisions, and serious stress when things go wrong. According to American Business Review, many attempts at no bosses quietly recreate informal hierarchies where power is still concentrated but no one is clearly accountable through. And though informal hierarchies can sometimes help depending on the situation. You might notice this when a supposedly flat company somehow still has that one guy everyone is scared to contradict, even though his title is just a team member. There is also the unpleasant math of risk and capital. According to research on Mondragon's international expansion by Rutgers.edu, some of its industrial cooperatives struggled to retain full worker ownership structures when going global, leading to a mix of cooperatives and more conventional subsidiaries that raised questions about how far worker control really extends under competitive pressure. According to a case study found on Sage Journals of one Mondragon group, the Fager Ederlin group, attempts to cooperativize subsidies showed how hard it is to keep strong worker participation while also raising investment and staying viable in global supply chains. You might notice this tension whenever a worker-run business needs serious outside funding, and suddenly investors are less excited about the one worker, one vote part. On the ground, transitions to worker control or self-management can fail spectacularly if they are done for the wrong reasons. According to corporate rebels, many companies adopt self-management because it looks trendy or promises cost cutting, but then keep old power dynamics, skip training, and avoid dealing with conflicts, which leaves employees more confused and disengaged than before. According to a thesis of ex-employees of self-managing firms, people often still prefer self-management in theory, but report that poor implementation, unclear roles, and half-decentralized power can make organizing work harder rather than easier. You might notice this when a company announces that they're empowering you, and what they actually mean is that they removed managers, but not the workloads, and they're wishing you good luck. So, how can two people reasonably look at the same idea, workers controlling the company, and walk away with opposite conclusions? Part of it comes down to what they value most in a workplace: security, fairness, efficiency, freedom, or clear hierarchy. If you care more about equality, dignity, and having a say over decisions that shape your life, you are more likely to see worker control as a logical correction to the power imbalance in traditional firms, especially when evidence shows co-ops can be just as productive. You might notice those people focusing on stories about Mondragon or local co-ops that survived recessions without mass layoffs. If you care more about speed, specialization, and attracting top talent, you might see worker control as risky or inefficient. According to a Participedia's overview of worker cooperatives data, many co-ops deliberately compress pay scales. Mondragon's typical ratio between highest and lowest paid workers is around 5-1 or 3-1, while major conventional corporations can reach ratios of 600-1, which some argue can push highly paid specialists to look elsewhere. You might notice these critics highlighting failed experiments in self-management or pointing out how complicated governance becomes when every big decision needs broad buy-in instead of a fast executive call. Experience also plays a huge role. Someone who has been laid off in a profitable company after a merger is going to hear workers should control the company and think, yes, obviously, why don't we already do this? Someone who lived through a badly run, flat organization with endless meetings and vague responsibility will hear the same phrase and think that they enjoy knowing what their boss is and who their boss is. Both reactions make sense because both are responding to trade-offs: stability versus agility, equality versus hierarchy, and voice versus speed. So, how to think about it? When you hear arguments about workers controlling companies, the real question is not, is this good or bad forever, but what matters most to you and what trade-offs are you willing to live with? If you want more democracy and solidarity at work, you might be okay with slower decisions and more meetings, as long as they are well designed. If you crave clear chains of command and fast moves, you might want hybrid models where workers share ownership but not every decision. Watch out for red flags like companies using self-management as a buzzword while keeping all real power at the top, or co-ops that never talk honestly about capital, risk, and conflict. You do not need someone telling you what to think about worker control. You just need to understand how it actually works when humans, not slogans, are actually in charge. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a hype, leave a subscribe, leave a share, leave another hype and another subscribe, and then share it to everyone you know, including your chair. I mean, dude, just share it to everyone, man. I am so unbelievably done with this script, man. Get me out of here. There's like, actually, it's not as bad as the other video. The other video was like, gosh, what was it? It was like 13. The other video was like 20-something sources. This video is only like 10-ish sources, so it's not that bad. But if I have to fact check one more source, I think I'm actually going to cry in my sleep. And I also totally forgot to say sources at the video, so now I have to go record that. And you guys got to hear it, but now I have to go record it. And you know what? I'm going to end the video. This is getting off topic. Thank you for watching, and come back to watch another one. Goodbye.